I am Professor Augustine A Thomas. This presentation about The Merchant of Venice, a drama of William Shakespeare, is the seventh in the series. Similar presentations were earlier done on King Lear, Othello, Hamlet, Macbeth, Antony and Cleopatra, and The Tempest. The organization called Safalam Pala had given me the impetus to embark on such an adventurous course. Since these presentations had been widely accepted and appreciated, it is decided to do yet another similar one on The Merchant of Venice. It is all because of the realization that these have gone into the hearts of a multitude of listeners inside and outside Safalam, who continue to cherish a real taste and gusto for the immortal literary creations of Shakespeare. It is said that in The Merchant of Venice, if Portia is the beauty of the play, Shylock is its strength. The play owes its immortality and abiding popularity to Portia and Shylock, two unique creations of Shakespeare, and also to the trial scene, which in itself is a complete drama. The Merchant of Venice, probably written in 1596, is a romantic comedy. It is romantic both in form and content. It is romantic in its poetry, in its music, and in the lyrical sweetness of its last scene. It is also romantic in its utter disregard of the classical rules of dramatic composition, as for example, in its violation of the three dramatic unities of time, place, and action. In characterization, as well as in plot construction, the play shows the maturity of Shakespeare's genius. Its plot is one of the most fantastic and extravagant ever conceived by Shakespeare. Three romantic love affairs are going on side by side. One is that of Portia and Bassanio. The second is that of Nerissa and Gratiano. The third is that of Jessica and Lorenzo. The pound of flesh story, the bond story, and the story of the lottery involving the caskets, and the story of the innocent exchange of rings. These four events provide sufficient room for mirth, humor, laughter, mercy, pathos, music, songs, and poetry. Shakespeare utilizes his great art and skill in welding these disparate elements into a single whole. Absurdities and crudities might be there, but they have been overcome by heightening the human interest. Remember the famous explanation of what literature is. It is that literature is language heightened, the Jew and the Gentile, or Jew and non-Jew, or Jew and Christian dichotomy has been for the previous 20 centuries a subject of big disputes, controversies, disharmonies, fights, wars, persecutions, and even terrorism. All these prop up in the Merchant of Venice as debatable subjects. Money lending or usury, and the very peculiar mindset of money lenders, and what all havoc it creates. All these financial and commercial matters are of big concern in economics and in interpersonal relationships, etc. Viewed in the background of racism, religious intolerance, and bigotry, which continue to mar the progress of civilization all over this beautiful planet Earth, in spite of man's giant strides in education, science, and technology, are treated in this drama as subjects of great importance. The way out is also suggested. That is vociferously spoken by Portia in the trial scene. In fact, her discourse on what mercy is, which drops on us like the gentle rain from heaven, etc., etc., seems like a medical prescription applicable to sick people from any walk of life. The dominance of women over men and the happiness it brings about for everyone is what makes Shakespeare's comedies a class by itself. Here also, Portia, Nerissa, and Jessica become the beloved of the benediction showering moonlight, in whose coolness men characters get sure and abiding security and protection. Now we will come to the drama proper. At the outset itself, we can gladly take a cue of what the play is from a sentence spoken by Gratiano about the women in it. This observation actually appears towards the fag end of the drama. It is thus: fair ladies, you drop manna in the way of starved people coming back. Let us go to Act 1, Scene 1. Here we meet the two chief male characters, Antonio and Bassanio. Antonio is the merchant of Venice, and Bassanio is his very good friend. This Bassanio is in love with the rich heiress of Belmont, Portia. Portia loves Bassanio also. However, she is bound by a legal document left as legacy to her by her dead father. This legacy lays down some conditions for finding her husband. It is that there are 3 caskets, out of which just one casket contains Portia's picture. Suitors are to be invited, and the one who selects the casket which contains her picture will become eligible to marry her. Now Bassanio is in need of 3,000 ducats, that is gold coins, for arranging to go to Belmont and become a party to this lottery. Bassanio shares with Antonio his heartfelt feelings about Portia. Thus, in Belmont is a lady richly left, and she is fair, and fairer than that word, of wondrous virtues. Sometimes from her eyes I did receive fair speechless messages. Her name is Portia, nothing undervalued, to Cato's daughter Brutus Portia. Nor is the wide world ignorant of her worth, for the four winds blow in from every coast, renowned suitors, and her sunny locks hang on her temples like a golden fleece, which makes her seat of Belmont called so Strand, and many Jasons come in quest of her. Antonio arranges to borrow the money for Bassanio from Shylock. This Shylock is a Jew, an alien who has settled in Venice. He is a usurer, lending money for interest on very strict terms. He is also a committed follower of his religious rituals, cherishing hatred towards non-Jews, especially Christians. Shylock has known Antonio for years. Antonio is a liberal Christian and a successful merchant. He too gives money to needy persons, but he takes no interest. It was his habit to make fun of Shylock, even in public places. Antonio, accompanied by Bassanio, approaches Shylock for the purpose of the loan. Bassanio also invites him to have dinner with them. Typical of his Jewish stance, Shylock replies thus: I will buy with you, sell with you, talk with you, walk with you, but I will not eat with you, drink with you, nor pray with you. Antonio speaks out to Bassanio his opinion about Shylock. It is thus: the devil can cite scripture for his purpose. An evil soul producing holy witness. He is like a villain with a smiling cheek, a goodly apple rotten at the heart. Shylock agrees to lend 3,000 ducats. But Antonio should sign a bond and get it sealed by a notary. The main condition is that if Antonio fails to repay the sums within the stipulated period of 3 months, the penalty will be that 1 pound of flesh shall be cut off and taken from what part of Antonio's body which pleases Shylock. Bassanio feels unhappy about such a risky agreement, so he insists Antonio to refrain from this transaction. To this, Antonio replies thus: Why? Fear not, man, I will not forfeit it. Within these 2 months, that is a month before this bond expires, I do expect return of thrice 3 times value of this bond. Thus the transaction is done. Antonio jokingly speaks to Bassanio thus, "Hie thee, gentle Jew." This Hebrew will turn Christian. He grows kind. In Act 2, Scene 3, we see Jessica, daughter to Shylock, talking to the clown Launcelot Gobbo about her secret love affair with Lorenzo. This Lorenzo is a Christian. Naturally, Shylock is totally against any such proposal. In spite of it, this love affair is proceeding secretly. Jessica is ready to be converted into a Christian and thus become Lorenzo's wife. The truth is that she is ashamed to be her father's daughter. She cannot subscribe to his miserliness. To Launcelot, she hands over a private letter to be given to Lorenzo. This letter explains how her plan of coming out of her father's house by night and escaping in the company of her lover is to be implemented. Antonio, Bassanio, and the merry group have arranged a big dinner party that night. Even a masque is arranged to be staged. They have invited Shylock also. Though a bit unwilling, Shylock goes for the party. After asking his daughter to keep all doors and windows shut from inside until he returns. Taking capital out of this situation, Jessica, dressed as a man, comes out and as pre-planned runs away in the hands of Lorenzo. In Act 2, Scene 7, we see Portia talking to the Prince of Morocco, who has come there as a suitor to try his luck. The Prince of Morocco reads the instructions, which are thus: "The first of gold, who this inscription bears, who chooseth me, shall gain what many men desire. The second, silver, which their promise carries, who chooseth me, shall get as much as he deserves. This third, dull lead, with warning all as blunt, who chooseth me, must give and hazard all he hath." After so much of weighty ruminations, the Prince of Morocco chose the golden casket. It did not contain Portia's picture, so he lost and left the place. In Act 2, Scene 8, we see Shylock frantically roaming the streets because he got a report that his daughter and Lorenzo were seen hurriedly sailing away in a boat. He is heartbroken and is seen crying aloud and prating thus, "My daughter, oh my ducats, oh my daughter, fled with a Christian, oh my Christian ducats. Justice, the law, my ducats and my daughter. A sealed bag, 2 sealed bags of ducats, of double ducats, stolen from me by my daughter. And jewels, 2 stones, 2 rich and precious stones, stolen by my daughter. Justice, find the girl. She had the stones upon her and the ducats." A few naughty boys in the street, were seen running after Shylock, laughing at him and repeating in imitation Shylock's own words like, "My daughter, oh my ducats, oh my daughter." The Prince of Aragon also comes to Portia's place to try his luck. He also fails to choose the right casket and has to leave. Upon this, Portia's waiting woman, Nerissa, makes a wonderful statement, which is thus: "The ancient saying is no heresy. Hanging and wiving goes by destiny." It simply means this: getting the punishment of being hanged from the gallows and also finding a suitable life partner. Both are matters of chance or luck or ill luck. Remember, destiny is a highly powerful word with Shakespeare in his dramas like Othello and The Tempest. Destiny assumes dimensions which are tantamount to the shape of an important character. So to say, Act 3, Scene 1 is a very important one. Here we see a very different Shylock. In fact, a pained Shylock asking certain questions which are poignant enough to create big dents in the hearts of all right-thinking persons. The Jewish diaspora, that is to say, the scattering of the Jewish community outside of Palestine after the Babylonian captivity, has been remaining a burning issue for 2 millennia. We had seen in the Second World War racism and communal polarization raising their ugliest heads under the tyrannical rule of Adolf Hitler, and the consequent massacres and genocides, even to think about which the world shudders. Salanio and Salarino are seen discussing the latest news on the Rialto, that is, stock exchange. They are a bit worried that they have received reports that their dear friend Antonio's ship carrying goods is wrecked and lost. Now, Shylock enters with a sad face, having been made desperate owing to the unexpected disappearance of his daughter. Then Salarino refers to the news that Antonio has lost his ship. This news enlivens Shylock. He bumps up and expresses his happiness over it. He was in fact looking forward to getting an opportunity to settle some old scores with Antonio. Shylock tells that Antonio used to insult him and even castigate him in front of others by calling him a cutthroat usurer. He proclaims that Antonio had better look to his bond. Then Salarino asks him if he will take Antonio's flesh. If he forfeits it, what good is that flesh for him? To this, Shylock gives a fantastic answer. It is thus: "It will feed my revenge. He hath disgraced me. and hindered me 500,000, laughed at my losses, mocked at my gains, scorned my nation, thwarted my bargains, cooled my friends, heated my enemies. And what is his reason? I am a Jew. Hath not a Jew eyes? Hath not a Jew hands, organs, dimensions, senses, affections, passions? Fed with the same food, hurt with the same weapons, subject to the same diseases, healed by the same means, warmed and cooled by the same winter and summer, as a Christian is. If you prick us, do we not bleed? If you tickle us, do we not laugh? If you poison us, do we not die? And if you wrong us, shall we not revenge? If you are like you in the rest, we will resemble you in that. If a Jew wrongs a Christian, what is his humility? Revenge. If a Christian wrongs a Jew, what should his sufferance be by Christian example? Why? Revenge. The villainy you teach me, I will execute. These are universal issues raised by the agonized mind of Shylock. Jews versus Christians, Muslims versus Christians. These two racist and communal confrontations and the resultant feud and animosity, which continue unabated till date, has taken big tolls all over the world. And the fun is that all these fights and wars and effronteries are undertaken by each side in the name of God or belief systems. What a pity. Now, Shylock's Jewish friend Tubal enters. This Tubal had been entrusted by Shylock to gather news from Genova regarding his daughter. Please listen to the following conversation between them. Tubal: yes, other men have ill luck too. Antonio: as I heard in Genova. Shylock: what? Ill luck? Ill luck? Tubal: hath an argosy castaway coming from Tripolis. Shylock: I thank God. I thank God. Is it true? Is it true? Tubal: I spoke with some of the sailors who escaped the wreck. Shylock: I thank thee, good Tubal. Good news, good news. Ha ha! Here in Genova? Tubal: your daughter spent in Genova, as I heard, one night 80 ducats. Shylock: thou stickest a dagger in me. I shall never see my gold again. 80 ducats at a sitting. 80 ducats. Now they part for their own separate business needs, promising to meet afterwards at the synagogue. In Act 3, Scene 2, we see Bassanio accompanied by Gratiano reaching Portia's place to try his luck. Bassanio is successful in selecting the right casket. Thereupon the exhilarated Portia informs him thus: "This house, these servants, and this same myself are yours, my lord. I give them with this ring, which, when you part from, lose, or give away, let it presage the ruin of your love, and be my vantage to exclaim on you." Gratiano congratulates Bassanio and Portia. He also announces that at the time when their nuptial is to be formally solemnized, he may also be married, because he has got such a promise from Nerissa. Portia asks Nerissa about it, and she admits that it is true. All the four are very happy that their marriage feast shall thus stand much honored. At this point enter Lorenzo, Jessica, and Salerio as a messenger from Venice. Salerio hands over a letter to Bassanio as entrusted by Antonio. After reading the letter, Bassanio suddenly becomes very serious. He tells Portia that he has to go back to Venice urgently, and he tells her why it is so. Portia agrees. She is all appreciation towards her lover for his genuine concern for a true friend. She also asks him to go with a double or treble the sum in the bond to the person concerned, and absolve his friend from punishments. Further, Portia speaks thus: "First go with me to church and call me wife, and then away to Venice to your friend. For never shall you lie by Portia's side with an unquiet soul. You shall have gold to pay the petty debt 20 times over." Losing no time, Portia meticulously devises a plan to take her husband's dearest friend out of the present conundrum. Entrusting a special duty to the couple, Lorenzo and Jessica, Portia speaks thus: "Lorenzo, I commit into your hands the husbandry and manage of my house until my lord's return. For mine own part, I have to at heaven breathed a secret vow, to live in prayer and contemplation, only attended by Nerissa here, until her husband and my lord's return. There is a monastery 2 miles off, and there we will abide." Then Portia arranges for taking the help of her cousin, Dr. Bellario of Padua, who is reputed in jurisprudence. The strategy she has in mind is this: herself and Nerissa will put on men's clothes, and with proper documents authenticated by Dr. Bellario, will go to the court of Venice, where the trial of Antonio is to be held. Portia as a judge, and Nerissa as the judge's clerk. Act 3, Scene 5 is a short one, but it is very important from a particular perspective. Here we see the clown Launcelot referring to Jessica's present condition as if between Scylla and Charybdis. Scylla is the name of a dangerous rock, and Charybdis is a big whirlpool. Thus, between Scylla and Charybdis as a phrase has taken a pride of place in literary circles, just as the idiom between the devil and the deep sea. Thereafter, we see a sitting of Jessica and Lorenzo. Here we see both vying with each other in praising each one's beauteous and positive characteristics, whereas letting down and disparaging others even for small follies and foibles is a pastime for many people. Here we see a different paradigm regarding life and health. Please recall similar situations in the play Antony and Cleopatra, where Enobarbus takes a lead in speaking highly of the people he has met with. Act 4, Scene 1 is known as the trial scene. For various reasons, this scene has become world famous. And there are so many who use one or other of the phrases or idioms and usages obtainable here in their official or even in their personal life situations and career. Prior to the trial, the Duke asked Shylock not to go by the letter of the bond and be merciful. But Shylock is adamant and he refuses to relent. He states that by their holy Sabbath, he has sworn to have the due and forfeit of his bond. What he demands as all the sanction of law. But there arises an existential question whether law and legality are pitiless. This issue has been plaguing the judges, lawyers, and people in legal circles ever since humanity and the court procedures had their start. Bassanio offers to pay any sum that Shylock demands so that his friend is absolved from the penalty. But all these pleas fall on deaf ears only. Now Antonio understands that his situation is hopeless and he requests that he be given the punishment. Hearing this, the heartbroken Bassanio offers to place himself in the place of Antonio and requests to acquit Antonio. But Shylock declines that offer also. Now, the Duke announces that since the case is so complex, he has requested a learned and expert doctor of law, Bellario, to be present to judge over this dispute. Now, Nerissa enters, dressed like a lawyer's clerk, and hands over to the Duke a letter from Dr. Bellario of Padua. As per this letter, since Bellario is not well now, he has authorized a young doctor of Rome, whose name is Balthasar, to be the judge. The Duke permits this Dr. Balthasar to handle the case. Now, Portia enters, dressed as Dr. Balthasar. She initially asked the Jew to be merciful. Then follows an interesting conversation, which is thus. Portia to Antonio, do you confess the bond? Antonio, I do. Portia, then must the Jew be merciful? Shylock, On what compulsion must I? Tell me that. Portia. The quality of mercy is not strained. It droppeth as the gentle rain from heaven upon the place beneath. It is twice blessed. It blesseth him that gives and him that takes. It is mightiest in the mightiest. It becomes the throned monarch better than his crown. His scepter shows the force of temporal power, the attribute to awe and majesty, wherein doth sit the dread and fear of kings. But mercy is above this sceptred sway. It is enthroned in the heart of kings. It is an attribute to God Himself. And earthly power doth then show like as gods when mercy seasons justice. Therefore, Jew, though justice be thy plea, consider this, that in the course of justice none of us should see salvation. We do pray for mercy, and that same prayer that teaches all to render the deeds of mercy. I have spoke thus much to mitigate the justice of thy plea, which if thou follow, the strict court of Venice must need give sentence against the merchant there. But Shylock insists. So Portia asks whether Antonio is not able to pay back the money. Hearing this, Bassanio offers his readiness to pay twice the sum, and if that is not sufficient, he will pay 10 times over. Bassanio also prays that malice should not be permitted to have the upper hand, and for this one time the judge may take law into his own hands, break it a little, for saving the life of a human being. To this, Portia replies thus: it must not be. There is no power in Venice can alter a decree established. Hearing this, the elated Shylock exclaims thus: a Daniel come to judgment? Yea, a Daniel. O wise young judge, how do I honor thee? Now, Portia asks for the bond to be shown to her. The all too pleased Shylock hands it over. After perusing the bond, Portia pronounces thus: why? This bond is forfeit, and lawfully by this the Jew may claim a pound of flesh, to be by him cut off nearest the merchant's heart. Be merciful, take thrice by thy money, bid me tear the bond. However, Shylock remains unmoved. Then follows a conversation in which Antonio, Portia, Shylock, Bassanio, and Gratiano are involved. It is thus: Antonio, most heartily I do beseech the court to give the judgment. Portia, why then thus it is, you must prepare your bosom for his knife. Shylock, O noble judge, O excellent young man, Portia, for the intent and purpose of the law, hath full relation to the penalty which here appeareth due upon the bond. Shylock, it is very true, O wise and upright judge. How much more older art thou than thy looks? Portia, therefore lay bare your bosom. Shylock, yea, this breast. So says the bond. Doth it not, noble judge? Nearest his heart. Those are the very words. Portia, it is so. Are there balance here to weigh the flesh? Shylock, I have them ready. Portia, how by some surgeon? Shylock, on your charge, to stop his wounds, lest he should bleed to death. Shylock, is it so nominated in the bond? Portia, it is not so expressed. But what of that? It were good you do so much for charity. Shylock, I cannot find it. It is not in the bond. Portia, you merchant, have you anything to say? Antonio, but little. I am armed and well prepared. Give me your hand, Bassanio, fare you well. Grieve not that I am fallen to this for you. Commend me to your honorable wife. Tell her the process of Antonio's end. Say how I loved you. Speak me fair in death. Bassanio, Antonio, I am married to a wife which is as dear to me as life itself. But life itself, my wife, and all the world are not with me esteemed above thy life. I would lose all, yea, sacrifice them all here to this devil to deliver you. Portia, your wife would give you little thanks for that, if she were by to hear you make the offer. Gratiano, I have a wife whom I protest I love. I would she were in heaven, so she could entreat some power to change this currish Jew. Nerissa, it is well you offer it behind your back. The wish should make else an unquiet house. Shylock, these be the Christian husbands. I have a daughter. Would any of the stock of Barabbas had been her husband rather than a Christian? We trifle time. I pray thee, pursue sentence. Portia, a pound of that same merchant's flesh is thine. The court awards it, and the law doth give it. Shylock, most rightful judge. Portia, and you must cut this flesh from off his breast. The law allows it, and the court awards it. Shylock, most learned judge. A sentence, come, prepare. Portia, tarry a little. There is something else. This bond doth give thee here no jot of blood. The words expressly are a pound of flesh. Then take thy bond, and take thou thy pound of flesh. But in the cutting it, if thou dost shed one drop of Christian blood, thy lands and goods are by the laws of Venice confiscate. unto the state of Venice. Gratiano, O upright judge, mark Jew, O learned judge. Shylock, is that the law? Portia, thyself shall see the act. For as thou urgest justice, be assured thou shalt have justice more than thou desirest. Gratiano, O learned judge, mark Jew, a learned judge. Shylock, I take this offer then, pay the bond thrice, and let the Christian go. Bassanio, here is the money. Portia, soft, the Jew shall have justice. Soft, no haste. He shall have nothing but the penalty. Gratiano, O Jew, an upright judge, a learned judge. Portia, therefore prepare thee to cut off the flesh. Shed thou no blood, nor cut thou less nor more, but just a pound of flesh. If thou takest more or less than a just pound, be it but so much, as makes it light or heavy in the substance, or the division of the 20th part of one poor scruple. Nay, if the scale do turn, but in the estimation of a hair, thou diest, and all thy goods are confiscated. Gratiano, a second Daniel, a Daniel, Jew. Now, infidel, I huff thee on the hip. Portia, why doth the Jew pause? Take thy forfeiture. Shylock, give me my principal and let me go. Bassanio, I have it ready for thee. Here it is. Portia, he hath refused it in the open court. He shall have merely justice and his bond. Gratiano, a Daniel, I still say a second Daniel. I thank thee, Jew, for teaching me that word. Shylock, shall I not have barely my principal? Portia, thou shalt have nothing but the forfeiture, to be so taken at thy peril, Jew. Shylock, why then the devil give him good of it? I will stay no longer question. Portia, tarry, Jew, the law hath yet another hold on you. It is enacted in the laws of Venice, if it be proved against an alien, that by direct or indirect attempts he seek the life of any citizen, the party against the which he doth contrive shall seize one half of his goods. The other half comes to the privy coffer of the state, and the offender's life lies in the mercy of the Duke only. Against all other voice, in which predicament I say thou standst. For it appears by manifest proceeding that indirectly and directly too thou hast contrived against the very life of the defendant, and thou hast incurred the danger formerly by me rehearsed. Down therefore and beg mercy of the Duke. that thou shalt see the difference of our spirit. I pardon thee thy life before thou ask it. For half thy wealth it is Antonio's, the other half comes to the general state. Antonio, so please my lord the Duke and all the court to get the fine for one half of his goods. I am content. So he will let me have the other half in use to render it upon his death unto the gentleman that lately stole his daughter. Two things provided more, that for this favor he presently become a Christian. The other, that he do record a gift here in the court of all he dies possessed unto his son Lorenzo and his daughter. Duke, he shall do this, or else I do recant the pardon that I late pronounced here. Portia, art thou contented, Jew? What dost thou say? Shylock, I am content. Portia, clerk, draw a deed of gift. Shylock, I pray you give me leave to go from hence. I am not well, and send thy deed after me, and I will sign it. Duke, get thee gone, but do it. Then Shylock goes out. The Duke now requests Portia to have dinner with him in the palace. But Portia declines the offer, stating that she has to reach Padua urgently. The Duke and his train go out. Now, Bassanio expresses his deep sense of gratitude for saving the life of his friend. He also requests her to accept the 3,000 ducats as her fee. Portia declines this offer, saying that one is well paid who is well satisfied. In that case, Bassanio pressingly requests her to accept some item as a remembrance of their indebtedness, not as a fee. Thereupon, Portia tells him that she will accept the ring worn by him in his hand. Hearing this, Bassanio starts parading one excuse after another for not parting with the ring. But Portia insists that she will accept nothing else if not the ring. Then Bassanio goes on explaining the special circumstances under which he had got the ring from his beloved wife, etc., etc. Portia says that she is not convinced. Saying this, Portia and Nerissa leave the place. Now Antonio advises Bassanio that when all is said and done, it will be in the fitness of things to give the ring. And his wife will only appreciate it when she knows the history behind it. So Bassanio sends Gratiano after Portia, and thus the ring is presented to her. Act 5, Scene 1, which is the concluding one, is immensely beautiful. Suffused with romantic charms and melodious musicality, the location is Belmont. Lorenzo and Jessica are seen in the garden in a moonlit night. Their hearts' outpourings about what a sweet love life can be are given free expression. Lorenzo begins it thus: the moon shines bright in such a night as this, when the sweet wind did gently kiss the trees, and they did make no noise in such a night. Troilus, methinks, mounted the Trojan walls, and sighed his soul towards the Grecian tents, where Cressida lay that night. Then Jessica adds that in such a night as this, the lady This walked across the dew-covered forest to meet her lover Pyramus. They go on narrating some such famous love stories which have thrilled generations after generations. For example, Dido stood by the wild sea with the branch of a willow tree in her hands, waving it high to encourage her lover to return to Carthage. Medea gathered the herbs with magic qualities which gave new youthfulness to her father-in-law, Aeson. Lorenzo continues like this: how sweet the moonlight sleeps upon this bank. Here will we sit and let the sound of music creep in our ears. Soft stillness and the night become the touches of sweet harmony. After referring to such big possibilities of the sound of music, Lorenzo makes one more affirmation thus: the man that hath no music in himself, nor is not moved with the concord of sweet sounds, is fit for treasons, stratagems, and spoils. While such beautiful references about the inherent qualities of music were in full swing, Portia and Nerissa enter. They also suddenly become part and parcel of this amorousness. Portia says thus: now the moon sleeps with Endymion and would not be awaked. This Endymion has remained a fantabulous character in many mythologies. In the 19th century, John Keats wrote a wonderful poem entitled Endymion, which opens thus: a thing of beauty is a joy forever. Its loveliness increases and will never pass into nothingness. The moon falling in love with a mortal named Endymion and showing him a marvelous side of its body, which the moon had never shown to anybody else so far, had remained a big subject matter for poetry in the hands of poets like Robert Browning, who specialized in writing dramatic monologues. At this point enter Bassanio, Antonio, Gratiano, and their followers. Bassanio is in supreme happiness. He speaks about Antonio as the one to whom he is so infinitely bound. All are welcomed there. Meanwhile, Gratiano and Nerissa indulge in a separate talk, in which Nerissa questions Gratiano as to what happened to his wedding ring. Gratiano explains the circumstances under which he was compelled to present it to the judge's clerk. But Nerissa refuses to be satisfied. Portia intervenes and tells that Gratiano only is to be blamed for treating the matter so lightly. Pointing to Bassanio, she adds thus, I gave my love a ring and made him swear never to part with it. And here he stands. I dare be sworn for him he would not leave it. Bassanio stands there completely nonplussed and bewildered. Though the audience is aware of the dramatic irony in such situations, a section of the characters is not aware of it, and hence the fun and humor and enjoyment in it. Now, Gratiano comes forward and gives a clarification thus. My lord Bassanio gave his ring away unto the judge that begged it, and indeed deserved it too. And then the boy, his clerk, that took some pains in writing, he begged mine. And neither man nor master would take aught but the 2 rings. Hereupon, Bassanio pleads with Portia thus, Sweet Portia, if you did know to whom I gave the ring, if you did know for whom I gave the ring, and would conceive for what I gave the ring, and how unwillingly I left the ring, when naught would be accepted but the ring, you would abate the strength of your displeasure. Hearing all this, Antonio expresses his sadness that he is the unhappy subject of all these quarrels, which makes him very uncomfortable also. Now, Portia decides not to stretch this over sentimental melodrama any further. She informs that if Antonio is ready to be a surety, she will hand over a ring to Bassanio, and she shows the ring also. Bassanio is too astonished that it is the very same ring that he presented to Dr. Balthasar. Please follow this conversation. Portia, you are all amazed. Here is a letter. Read it at your leisure. It comes from Padua, from Bellario. There you shall find that Portia was the doctor, Nerissa there the clerk. Lorenzo here shall witness I set forth as soon as you, and but even now returned. I have not yet entered my house. Antonio, you are welcome, and I have better news in store for you that you expect. Unseal this letter soon. There you shall find 3 of your argosies are richly come to harbor suddenly. You shall not know by what strange accident I chanced on this letter. Antonio, I am dumb. Bassanio, were you the doctor? And I knew you not? Gratiano, were you the clerk that is to make the cuckold? Nerissa, aye, but the clerk that never means to do it. Portia, how now, Lorenzo? My clerk hath some good comforts too for you. Nerissa, yea, and I will give them him without a fee. There do I give to you and Jessica from the rich Jew a special deed of gift. After his death, of all he dies possessed of. Lorenzo, fair ladies, you drop manna in the way of starved people. It was almost morning when all these were most happily settled and done, that too in unalloyed gladness, and they all dispersed. The drama ends there. Yes, the lady characters in The Merchant of Venice were, as Lorenzo commented, dropping the celestial food, manna, free of cost, on whoever desired the same. This illustrious Shakespearean comedy, The Merchant of Venice, raises certain crucial questions connected with humanity, mercy, and compassion. One is reminded of what Prospero unfailingly dictates towards the end of the drama The Tempest, which is thus: the rarer action is in virtue than in vengeance. Here in The Merchant of Venice, Shylock stands witness to the universal truth that vindictiveness never pays. It ruins you and those around you. Mercy, which droppeth as the gentle rain from heaven upon the place beneath, is the only antidote available to mankind to remedy its maladies. The play also deals a blow to the discord and cacophony prevailing in various religious sects and segments in the name of scriptures and of God, which for centuries has been unsettling the peaceful livelihood of millions of human beings, Gentile or Jew, Christian or non-Christian, believer or non-believer. Religious fundamentalism and intra-religious intolerance have always been a curse upon human existence. The trial scene in The Merchant of Venice has remained a topic of absorbing interest for lawyers and judges, and even for lay people. The hair-splitting arguments in the Court of Venice and the instantaneous and emotional responses from the parties on each side and their allies, as and when the argument took twists and turns, are remarkably depicted by Shakespeare. Perhaps readers of The Merchant of Venice everywhere have been interested in the character of Shylock, maybe even more than that of Antonio or Bassanio. How far law can be stretched out, and the irrelevance of legality without compassion, are all pertinent questions asked everywhere. At any rate, one query vociferously raised by the usurer Shylock thunders in the hearts of all humane persons. After admitting that he is a Jew, Shylock asks whether a Jew has not eyes, hands, organs, senses, affections, and passions as non-Jews have. Mankind has hitherto never been able to give a satisfactory answer to this itching question. Instead of bettering, what we have been witnessing everywhere is worsening in the name of God. The contention in this drama that the devil quotes more of scriptures to justify his ways is the reality that we are witnessing from day to day. Finally, a question can be asked whether The Merchant of Venice is truly a comedy in the strict sense of the word. The discomfiture of Shylock shows the tragic content in it. Hence, it can be stated that this play stands apart when compared to the group of Shakespearean comedies which bear the title of festive comedies. However, all this is more than compensated for in the sweetness of characters like Portia, Nerissa, and Jessica, who are jovial, engaging, trustworthy, efficient, caring, vigilant, merciful, and humane to the core of their being. And these are the lady characters who continue to haunt us, giving more and more hope and optimism in life to pull on tenaciously and beautifully in this otherwise sordid world. In moments when one sorrowfully recalls Shelley's utterance in Ode to the West Wind, I fall upon the thorns of life, I bleed. One can fruitfully lift his eyes and go through the drama, The Merchant of Venice, where you can find out lots of situations of comfort, consolation, solace, harmony, succor, concord, wholeness, and healing. Thank you.